So good morning to all of you, to all my dear students. So welcome you all in class 7th Social Science History class, and I am here to begin with chapter number 3, the Delhi Sultanate. And before I start, I'll just give you the basic introduction of the history, children. So our history is divided into three divisions, into three parts, that is ancient history, then medieval history, then the modern history. So in class 6, children, you have read the ancient history. Okay, that is a history which you have read about the prehistoric period, then you have read about the Paleolithic age. So you have read the history of a million of years ago. Okay, till 8th century AD you have covered up in class 6th. Okay, approximately 8th century AD, and now the period which starts from 8th century onwards till 18th century, it falls in the medieval history. Medieval means middle. So in class 7, children, we are going to read about the medieval history. Okay, that is middle aged history. And then the modern history you are going to read in class 8. So character wise we are going to read the story, children, here. Now the first character of our story is Muhammad Ghazni, who was an Afghan ruler. And now we have to go back 150 years ago, that is we will go in 10th century AD. Okay, in this chapter we are going to start our story from 10th century AD, where an Afghan ruler whose name was Muhammad Ghazni, as a foreign invader. Invader means one who attacks other country and take away all the precious jewels from that country into their own country for some purpose. So since beginning only, children, our countries, India's temples and the temple towns and the wealth of these temples and temple towns have attracted foreign invaders. Okay, those people, those who had attacked our country, they are known as foreign invaders. And from which side they have attacked our country? From the northwestern boundary, from the northwest frontier, because it is not possible for anyone to invade from northeast part because of the Himalayas as our barrier, as our protector. So one such invader was Muhammad Ghazni, and he was a ruler of Afghanistan, of Ghazni region. So he had entered India and he had defeated the Pratiharas, and Muhammad Ghazni he had raided. Raided means plundered. Plundered means looted. Okay, so he had plundered India 17 times in 10,000 AD till 10,027. Means during this period he had plundered India 17 times. And during this time he had defeated many rulers of northwestern India, and he had brought Punjab and parts of Sindh also under his rule. And Muhammad Ghazni he also plundered many cities, many palaces, temples, and including the very famous temple, the Somnath temple in Kathiawad in Gujarat. Okay, and it is believed, and if you'll ask the question why these foreign invaders they are coming to India and they attacked India, because that time India was the wealthiest country in the world. Okay, in all over the world, in terms of gold, precious stones, semi precious stones, in terms of all the natural resources. So that is why since beginning only, since ancient times only, India was a center of attraction for so many foreign people, foreign invaders. And it is believed that Muhammad Ghazni has used all this plundered wealth to build mosques, universities and palaces in his own native town Ghazni in Afghanistan. And also we are going to read about the different scholars and the historians in this chapter who had mentioned about the different rulers in their books. Okay, so the one of the great scholar was Al-Biruni. So he had also come to India during the reign of Muhammad Ghazni. So now, children, the Sufi also began to enter India during this time only, and it was this time only when Muslim traders also started settling in India. And one thing has to be noticeable, that during that time in India, who was ruling in North India and South India? So in North India during that time, Rajput rulers they were ruling prominently in North India. And in southern India, we had various rulers like Cholas were the main rulers, and followed by Pallavas. Okay, they were the main rulers, those who were ruling in South India. So now the character number 2 of our story is Muhammad Ghori. So now Muhammad Ghori, he was also a foreign invader, we can say, from Afghanistan, from a dynasty Ghor. Okay, so he belonged to the Ghor dynasty. So he had also come to India from Afghanistan, and then That time who was ruling in our country, he came to India in the year 1190. Okay, before 1190 only he had come to India a few years back, and that time he had invaded India and occupied the northwest, the northernmost part of India, like Punjab and Sindh, which is in today's Pakistan. So he, around 1190 he had occupied already these two places, and now he was moving towards Delhi and Ajmer. And that time who was ruling in India? The very famous and the brave ruler Prithviraj Chauhan III. Okay, he was ruling that time in Ajmer and Delhi during this time only, and now his ambition was also to gain control over Punjab. So now when Muhammad Ghori, he came to know that Prithviraj Chauhan is ruling, so then what happened? The Muhammad Ghori and Prithviraj Chauhan, they both had the first battle fought in the year 1191, and this battle was fought in the place Tarain, which is in Haryana, in present day Haryana, nearby Thanesar. Okay, it is 150 kilometers north of Delhi. So that time the first battle was fought between Muhammad Ghori and Prithviraj Chauhan was known as the first battle of the Rhine in the year 1191. And in that battle Muhammad Ghori was very badly defeated, and with great difficulty he was able to save his life with the help of his trusted slave Qutbuddin Aibak, who is a third character of a story Children. Okay, so remember this chapter, try to understand this chapter more as a story, and character wise if you will understand, you will be more able to understand the concept. Okay, so Qutbuddin Aibak, now he has taken the entry as a trusted slave of Muhammad Ghori, and that time slave was a kind of a trend. The rulers, Afghan rulers, they used to keep the slaves, they used to purchase the slaves, and they used to appoint them in their military, and they used to give them a lot of training of horse riding, weapons fighting, sword fighting. So this way the Qutbuddin Aibak, he was a very able and military commander, and he only saved Muhammad Ghori's life in the first battle of the Rhine 1191, otherwise he would have been killed by Prithviraj Chauhan III. Now when he was very badly defeated, he was not able to bear his defeat, so very secretly within a year only he was planning with all his military commanders and with all his advisors and nobles that within a year only he once again wants to have a battle with Prithviraj Chauhan III next year only, that is in 1192. So again next year, with full preparation, Muhammad Ghori, he marched towards the Delhi and Ajmer, Delhi. And Prithviraj Chauhan, he was not expecting that within a year only Muhammad Ghori will come with full preparation, full-fledged. So he was not so much prepared. So what happened, unfortunately, sadly, in this battle of Tarain, in the second battle of Tarain in 1192, Muhammad Ghori defeated Prithviraj Chauhan and he occupied Delhi and Ajmer. And then after winning this battle, he occupied some more territories, and then afterwards he decided to leave India. Muhammad Ghori, now he wanted to leave India because he was also actually foreign invader, a plunderer. One who only go in foreign countries and they loot them, they take away all the precious jewels of that area, particular place, and then they take, with the help of all those looted items, plundered items, they do the development and construction work in their own native town. So then what he did before leaving India, he gave all the in chargeship to his trusted and the able general military commander Qutbuddin Aibak. Then that time he was a slave. I have already explained you about the slave. So now what happened? Now let us read about the establishment of Delhi Sultanate. So when Muhammad Ghori, he died in the year 1206. Then Qutbuddin Aibak, he proclaimed himself. Proclaimed means he made an announcement, he declared himself publicly that now Qutbuddin Aibak, who originally belonged to the Turkish territory in India, I have become the Sultan of Delhi, and Delhi is my capital. Initially the capital was Lahore, but then Delhi was made the capital, and this is how it marked the beginning of Delhi Sultanate, by the proclamation or by the announcement of Qutbuddin Aibak as the Sultan of Delhi. So we can say that Qutbuddin Aibak was a founder of Delhi Sultanate. Okay. Now See children, the Delhi Sultanate had total 5 major dynasties. The first one, the slave dynasty. The slave dynasty was of Turkish origin. That is, these were the Turkish people. So total 5 dynasties were there of Delhi Sultanate. Amongst them, the first 4 were of Turkish origin. Okay, and the last one is of Afghan origin. So the slave dynasty is number 1, the Khalji dynasty number 2, Tughlaq dynasty number 3. Okay, and the Sayyid dynasty, and the 4th is Lodi dynasty. Now Delhi. Let us read about the history of Delhi. So Delhi ka Delhi. It is believed that it was established by the Rajput ruler Tomars in the year 7 in the century 736, that is in 7th century. Then Tomars had ruled in Delhi from 7th century, 8th century, 9th, 10th until the ending of 11th. Then in the beginning of 12th century, another Rajput ruler Chauhan, Prithviraj Chauhan won. He had defeated and captured the city of Tomars, that is Delhi. And then afterwards, during the reigning period of Chauhans only, Prithviraj Chauhan only, Delhi started growing as a very important administrative center in North India. And Delhi had also enjoyed strategic location. Okay, it was a center of India, heart of India. So most of the sultans, they wanted to establish a capital city over here only. So we have got the information of all these events and incidents from the various sources of history. So children, if we talk about the sources of history, there are 2 types of sources of history. The first one is archaeological and the second one is literary sources. Okay, archaeological. So let us talk about first of all the archaeological. Now you know the word archaeological has come from the word archaeology. So archaeology is a study of history. Okay, where all archaeologists and the scientists of the history, okay, historians, they just go on the research field work and they dig out the grounds and take out the excavations and the things on the sites, and then they study and prepare a report on it. Then on the basis of that report and data information only, we gather the conclusions. So the archaeological sources materials includes forts, tombs, places of worship, articles, weapons, tools, coins, clothes and ornaments. Most of the archaeological sources, children, we can see in the museums. Okay, you must have visited museum. And the literary sources include the writings of the travelers, okay, and scholars, officials and court historians of the period. Like in classes we have read about so many Chinese travelers, they had come to India, like Fahian, Huenzhang, okay. Say they were the travelers and they used to stay into the court of the kings only. They used to observe the administrative style, and then on the basis of their experience they used to write down the books. So this is how the literary source we had got today. Okay, so now Ibn Battuta. Ibn Battuta, he was a great scholar from Morocco, Africa. So he has given us important piece of information about the life of during Sultanate period. That time all the court historians, they always used to write to please their rulers. Okay, they were patronized by the rulers, means they were greatly supported by the rulers. So we have seen since beginning only, since ancient times, we have seen when the rulers and the kings, they started ruling in India, that they have supported and they have greatly encouraged, also motivated also all these historians and the other people, those were talented in different fields. So these historians, they were supported by the rulers and they have written Tariq. Tariq means history. Tariq is a Urdu word and it means history. So one of the book in which they have mentioned about the court of the Delhi Sultanate is Tariq, and some of the historians, they have written only to please the Delhi Sultanate rulers. So this we can say it was a drawback of the scholars like Minhaj-us-Siraj, and one more scholar, Ziauddin Barani. In his book Tariq-e-Firozi Shahi, he has mentioned the unbiased picture, means the clear picture, the real picture of the reigns of the Khaljis and the Tughlaq dynasty. Let us move ahead, children. These are some of the pictures and the maps. The maps are very, very important. So as we are moving ahead, just now what we have read, that who was the first ruler in the Delhi Sultanate? And to which dynasty does he belong? So he belongs to slave or Mamluk dynasty. So the first dynasty of the Delhi Sultanate is slave or Mamluk dynasty, and the time period was, it started in the year 1206 and it lasted till 1290. So now we are going to read in detail about the main rulers of the slave or Mamluk dynasty. So Qutbuddin Aibak was the founder of slave dynasty. And here the Mamluk means slave or the son of a slave. So first of all, the first ruler was Qutbuddin Aibak, and his reigning period is only from 1206 to 1210. That means he could rule only for 4 years, for a shorter period of time. So during his reigning period, he had made his position very strong, and he was a very generous and kind to his people, to his public. Okay, and he adopted the many policies, different policies like marriage alliances. And then we can say he had built the Delhi's oldest masjid. Okay, masjid, we all know that the worship place, the religious place of the Islamic people, Muslim people, it is known as mosque. So the oldest Delhi's masjid is Quwwat ul Islam. And a masjid is a place of Islamic worship in which the people, they go and they prostrate there. Okay, in worship. Prostrate means they lie down. And now you can see in this picture, these are the remains of the red sandstone screen in front of the Quwwat ul Islam Masjid in Delhi. And this was a masjid which was built by Qutbuddin Aibak. And after Qutbuddin Aibak, who became the ruler? Who was the second ruler? So he was Iltutmish. Okay, he was Qutbuddin's son-in-law. Then he ascended the throne. He was seated on the Mughal Empire in the year 1211. And he also did a lot of efforts in strengthening his position. And many provinces and the territories which were broken away by the Sultanate after Qutbuddin's death. And he also suppressed his rebellions, means during that time many rivals, many enemies were there, and it was a very tough competition to sit on the seat of the Mughal throne. It was a those people had to see a cutthroat competition. So he also faced very strongly his enemies. Then afterwards, Iltutmish was having that way many sons, but the sons were not capable of ruling. So he was having a very able daughter whose name was Razia. So after the death of Iltutmish, Razia, his able daughter, capable daughter, she ascended the throne. And now the scholar Minhas Suraj has acknowledged Razia's abilities. He had mentioned in his book that though Razia, she was a very capable, able administrator. Okay, more capable than any other male ruler. But during that time, a lot of caste discrimination, gender discrimination was prevailing during that time. And the women were not allowed to come and sit publicly in the court. So that is why she had to face a lot of opposition and objection from the Turkish nobles. Now who are the nobles? Those courtiers, ministers and the advisors. Okay, those who work and they support the ruler. So she did not get enough support from the Turkish nobles because she always acted like a soldier, like a brave soldier, and she was a great warrior also. She was having all the warrior skills. So that is why she had, because of all these customs, because of this orthodox custom, she had faced many difficulties just because that she was a woman. And she was not supported by and also that she has supported a lot to non-Turkish nobles. Okay, and she has appointed many of them in her court also. So this had made angry the Turkish people, because after all Razia was also Turkish, Iltutmish was also Turkish, Qutbuddin Aibak was also Turkish. But Razia, she also favored the non-Turkish people and ministers and appointed them in her court. So this way the Turkish nobles, they had made plottings against her. Plotted means they had made some conspiracies against her to kill her, to murder her. And finally, sadly, she was murdered in the year 1240. Then later on, Iltutmish was having a son, slave. Iltutmish was having a slave, his name was Balban. Okay, Ghiyasuddin Balban. So after many weak rulers, Ghiyasuddin Balban, who was slave of Iltutmish, and he was the ninth member of his family. So he became the ninth ruler. He became the ninth ruler of this slave dynasty. And then later on, what happened? Balban also, he died in 1287, and then lastly his grandson, he was the last ruler, and he was also murdered in the 1290. So this way, children, we have seen in the slave dynasty that there was a cutthroat competition for the throne. And now we are going to read about the second dynasty, which was the Khalji dynasty. So now Khalji dynasty has started, and who was the first ruler? Who was the first ruler and who was the founder of Khalji dynasty? He was Jalaluddin Firoz Khilji, and he had established a Khalji dynasty, and he had also killed Kumur. Okay, Jalaluddin Khilji. Kumur was the last ruler of slave dynasty actually, and his army commander was Jalaluddin Khilji. And as Kumur was very weak, so Jalaluddin Khilji understood his weakness. So what he did, he killed Kumur and then he ascended the throne. So the Khalji dynasty first ruler was Jalaluddin Khilji, and he had a nephew whose name was Alauddin Khilji, who was future son-in-law of Jalaluddin Khilji, and the very famous and the very brave ruler, we can say, of Khalji dynasty. So Alauddin Khilji, he was able to establish a very vast and successful empire. So Alauddin Khilji also killed his son-in-law Jalaluddin Khilji, and this way he ascended the throne. And during his reign, Mongols had many attacks on Alauddin Khilji period. Now Alauddin Khilji, it is said, it is a legend, it is a story that in Rajasthan, the capital of Mewar, to capture Padmini, the beautiful queen of Mewar's ruler Ratan Singh, he attacked Chittor. Then he was very ambitious ruler. He also wanted not only North India he wanted to rule, but he also wanted to capture and to rule in South India also. He wanted to annex, means he wanted to capture and then merge the territories of South India also in his own territories. So he wanted to expand his kingdom this way. So for this purpose, he sent his very trusted commander, military commander Malik Kafur, okay, to bring the rich kingdoms of the Deccan Plateau, means southern plateau. So there, these many small rulers were there, like Yadavs of Devgiri, Kakatiyas of Warangal, Hosalas of Dwara, Samudra, and Pandyas of Madurai. They all had accepted Alauddin's rulership. And we can say that for a very short period of India, Alauddin Khilji had ruled in almost the whole of India. And he tried to capture almost the South Deccan Plateau. And now we are going to read about the third dynasty, which is Tughlaq dynasty. So we should know that who was the founder. About every dynasty, we should know the name of the founder. So who has started this dynasty? Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. He established this dynasty in the year 1412. Okay. And he was succeeded by his son Jona Khan, who took the title of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, he established Tughlaqabad near Delhi, and he had built many canals for irrigation. And Mongols used to attack in India, especially in Alauddin Khilji's period, and 29 times Mongols had attacked India in the reigning period of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. And now Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Now Muhammad bin Tughlaq, it is said that he was a very intelligent, well-educated, well-qualified ruler, and that is why he had appointed, and he wanted to appoint the ministers and the nobles in his court on the basis of merit, on the basis of their ability, capability, okay, their potentials, not on the basis of their royal background, aristocracy. So he had performed, he had brought so many new things, and but what had happened when he was appointing the people of humble origin in his administration, then it had annoyed many people of the Turkish origin. So this same had happened in the reigning period of Razia Sultan also. Now see, Muhammad bin Tughlaq also had made many grand plans, and he did many new experiments also, which we are going to read in detail further. and he introduced many policies also, but they were not successful due to some reasons, as they were not carried out properly. And he brought many new things, policies also, which were not successful. So the people had lot trust in him, and so that is why many revolts also started in many parts of his empire. And this way, what happened, the many provinces began to break away in smaller parts. And then Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he died in the year 1351, and then later on Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Muhammad bin Tughlaq was succeeded by his cousin Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Okay, now the situation was out of control for Firoz Shah Tughlaq, because during the time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq only the situation became uncontrollable, as the people had lot trust in his policies. So it was so difficult for Firoz Shah Tughlaq to get control over the provinces and the people and the revolts. So he was not able to suppress the revolts and to win back the provinces which had broken away. But still, then also he had introduced and he carried out so many welfare programs, like he promoted agriculture, trade, crafts, new towns, and he has supported a learning. Then Firoz Shah also died in the year 1388, and this way the Sultanate rapidly declined. And then after some time we will see that some new kingdoms have arisen. Okay, like we can see the kingdoms of Vijayanagar, Bahmani, kingdoms of Deccan, and we can see the kingdoms of Bengal, Jaunpur, Gujarat, Malwa, Mewar, Marwar, Kashmir, Assam. So all these kingdoms, they were arising. Now one more, in this chapter children, we are going to read that there were two threats or two challenges before the rulers of Delhi Sultanate. First of all, there was a great fear of the Mongol rulers, and secondly, there was a great fear and the greatest challenge of the Timur's invasion also. Invasion means to go and attack in some country and to plunder all the wealth also, at the same time to kill the innocent people and to cause a lot of bloodshed and massacre. This is known as invasion. Yeah. So Timur Lang, who was also known as Timur the Lame, because during some incident he had lost his one leg. So he was a ruler of the region in Central Asia, and the name of the place was Samarkand, okay, around Samarkand. So he had invaded India in the year 1398, and then he was able to occupy some territories in the north and west. See, in our since 14th-15th century, there was always a threat of foreign invaders from the northwest boundaries. So then he plundered Delhi also. And when he was going back to Samarkand, then again also he did a lot of plundering. And he took away a lot of wealth, huge amount of wealth with him. And then what he did with that huge amount of wealth, he had constructed a lot of historical monuments in Samarkand. And then Timur left an Afghan chief named Khizr Khan in charge of all the Indian territories, just like Muhammad Ghori. So Timur also, before leaving India, he left and gave all the in chargeship to Khizr Khan, and then Khizr Khan, he established a fourth dynasty, which was Sayyid dynasty. So the Sayyid dynasty was a fourth dynasty which was established by Khizr Khan, and it lasted till 1451. Okay, and it was started when the Tughlaq were reigning in India, and when the Timur had come to India, then Tughlaq dynasty was ended, and then Sayyid dynasty, it lasted only till 1451, and now the fifth dynasty, the last dynasty of the Delhi Sultanate, which has started in the year 1451 and lasted till 1526. Now 1526 is also very important date in the history, because now it is going to give rise to another empire, the vast empire, the greatest empire in India. You have to guess it now. So Lodhis were the Afghans. They were the Afghan tribal people, and they have entered India during Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay, so they were Afghan rulers, and who was the founder of Lodhi dynasty? Behlol Lodhi. So in 1451, Behlol Lodhi he was the founder of Lodhi dynasty, and then he was succeeded by his very able, talented son Sikandar Lodhi, who was the second ruler. So he was also a great patron and supporter of art, learning, just like any other ruler. And he only founded the city of Agra. Then he made Agra as his capital. And then when he died in the year 1517, he was succeeded by his son Ibrahim Lodi. So Ibrahim Lodi was the last ruler of the Lodi dynasty, or we can say of the Delhi Sultanate, because what happened in the year 1526. Now 1526 is a very important turning point in the history date. Babur, who was a Central Asian chief, okay, who has come from Fergana Valley, then after Fergana Valley to Afghanistan, he invaded India. And then this battle was known as the first battle of Panipat, Panipat which is in Haryana. So the first battle of Panipat was fought between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi in the year 1526, and in this battle Ibrahim Lodi was very badly defeated and killed also, because Babur, for the very first time, Babur had come to India with a full-fledged army, and he also had introduced the usage of cannons in the war for the first time in India. So the Lodi dynasty came to an end, and with the same Delhi Sultanate also came to an end. And in the chapter number 4, next one, we are going to read that how did Babur establish his Mughal empire. Okay.